I really hated myself because I couldn't stop, and I just didn't know what was wrong with me, you know?
It's like you're in this bad dream and you can't wake up from it almost.
I didn't ever want to admit that I had a problem with something or I needed some help. You know, it showed a sign of weakness to other people.
No one ever gave us any answers.
I'm a drug addict. And the only way I'm going to recover is when I'm able to admit that I'm powerless over my addiction. I started selling weed in college because it just made it cheaper for me to smoke, and I got arrested on a bunch of trafficking charges. Got kicked out of school, got kicked off the baseball team, experienced some serious consequences. And so I was on probation with drug testing, and that's when I got introduced to OxyContin. I actually had wisdom teeth cut out. I'd just recently gotten on probation drug testing and got a prescription for Percocet. And since I had a prescription that could show up in my drug testing, it was okay to test positive, I started buying it on the street and just basically eluded drug testing for 2 years of probation, really taking a chance. And I mean, I think to me that shows the power of my disease, that I had a year on the shelf to serve in jail and I was still willing to use. So every day, all day became the obsession. And went into treatment a couple times for OxyContin, kept relapsing. And then this last time, maybe 9 months ago or a little, maybe more like a year ago, I started messing with heroin and started shooting heroin. And then things really got bad, really fast.
It was just dealing with life. I was experimenting, and I tried, you know, kind of the typical after-school special where you see a kid drink, and then he smokes a little marijuana, and then he tries cocaine. And by the time I tried OxyContin, I was married to it. There was no, I'm going to do that again next week, and I wanted that stuff tomorrow.
It was a sunny afternoon. My mother was walking to the store, and she said she'll be right back. The store was probably maybe a block, and there was some marijuana in an ashtray. You know, lots of marijuana that people were smoking prior to that. And so my older brother and I we went in the bathroom, and one thing led to another. We just lit it on the stove and went in the bathroom, and we just started smoking it. After the marijuana, you know, hanging out in the streets, I remember there was cocaine being used socially, and so I tried that. It wasn't an everyday thing at first. Once I made it to middle school, there were pills here and there. Those made me sick, so I didn't really take on to those either. When I was 16 years old, I can remember trying heroin for the first time.
I'm what they call a functioning addict. I can, for a while anyway, go to work, school, carry on with my responsibilities for a while. And so I can get by with it. I like the way it makes me feel. I like up. I like being up. Anything that makes me feel almost invincible, that I can do anything. I'm a high energy person anyway, so anything that takes me to that next level, I liked it. Marijuana, alcohol, cocaine, crack, which is my drug of choice, LSD, methamphetamines, pills, heroin.
About 13 years ago, I got introduced to pain medication. And from the very first one, it was all over. It was just went downhill from there. The first one that I took, it made me work. I worked at a Ryan's as a server, and I mean, I was all over the place. I was cleaning. I was just working, and I was like, oh wow, I like this, you know. And then it just progressed, you know, because it made me get up. It made me feel better, and just it gave me some kind of freeing, I guess. Made me feel better about myself.
I've actually never snorted heroin in my life. I went straight to shooting it. I just had a friend who taught me how to shoot up, and it was, I don't know, it really grabbed a hold of me the first time.
But I began using Oxycontin, and I noticed the price of Oxycontin was skyrocketing, and I was able to find heroin, which was cheaper and much stronger than Oxycontin. So to me, it made a heck of a lot of sense when I was in the addiction and through the madness. That's normality. And when I didn't have it, I felt like I was in another world. I couldn't sit still. And that's what leveled me out. And of course, your first high is wonderful. After that, it's just using to be normal. If you don't have it, you're sick. You can't function without it. And you'll do anything to get it.
At first you do it because you like it, and then you do it because you have to. You know, excuse me, your body won't have it any other way, and your mind is even worse.
I had a 2-year-old the first time. My little girl was 2. And so social services stepped in and took her, gave her to my parents. I was married, and that ended the relationship. We lost our home, went to jail, because at that point, to support my habit, I was breaking the law. You know, I had probably about a $300 a day habit at that point. And obviously you can't work enough to support that. So you have to do other things. And so it just unraveled very quickly for me.
I was about 88 days sober in June and relapsed, and then that's when I started shooting heroin. I was living in Cincinnati and stole from my girlfriend. She kicked me out of our apartment, and ended up checking into a Salvation Army because my family couldn't continue to pay for these, you know, expensive rehabs. And I got kicked out of the program and ended up walking the streets of Dayton, and literally, I mean, it sounds like a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, but I was literally under a bridge. And you know, I'm able to laugh about it now and to try to bring some levity to it, but the reality is that I was miserable and that I really wanted to kill myself because I didn't see a way out. And then I think, well, what the hell's the matter with me that I am hurting my family, I'm causing all this pain in relationships, getting arrested, getting kicked out of school, kicked out of rehab, halfway house. I actually ended up under a bridge and shooting up in abandoned houses. And I say, what's wrong with me that I continue to do this? And people are telling me that I'm choosing it. You know, it just didn't add up in my head. And it causes just an immense amount of self-loathing because I'd grown up a person with sports and with school. All I had to do was put my mind to it and work harder, and I could overcome it. And this thing just whooped me. It really did.
I just was a different person, hollow-eyed. I'd always have blood on my shirt or on my socks because eventually the veins in your arm go out and then you go to your legs and your ankles. And so it was one big lie, but the easiest way for me was just not to have any communication with anyone. And that's what I did. Kind of like Bin Laden hiding up in the mountains. That was me. I went to private schools in Louisville. I'm well educated. I had every opportunity in life, but addiction does not discriminate. It does not discriminate.
I think it's just a preconceived notion that we pigeonhole what an addict should look like. And we need to bust through that misconception, definitely.
I think people want to see the image of the heroin addict in an alley behind a dumpster getting high. And that's what I remember as a kid. That's just not accurate. In Louisville alone, since 2011, we've had a 650% increase in heroin deaths. So it's affecting everybody. Our fastest growing population is young men and women aged 18 to 25, most of them from good families.
I was working for an attorney in Cincinnati wearing a suit and tie to work every day and shooting heroin in the bathroom, you know, and nobody knew. Where it is a disease exactly like cancer or leukemia or what have you, it can strike anyone at any time, no matter your age, your race, your socioeconomic status. It does not discriminate. It doesn't discriminate who it affects and who it hurts.
It is a disease. And I feel like the stigma associated with drug addiction, it's not even there with other addictions. Like, to me, even alcoholics don't have that. People don't look at them the same as they look at a drug addict. Like, that's the lowest of the low. I feel like a lot of people feel like even a gambling addiction's not looked at, sex addiction is not looked at the same. So I feel like if we can get away from that, even for the addict, I feel like they even feel that way about themselves because it's been ingrained.
I guess he just went into hiding for a while the addiction took over.
A lot of them don't even realize, from what my research has been, that that there is even a way out.
Nothing bad ever happened. We've had such a good life. We had a boy and a girl, and then we were fortunate enough to adopt a child. And we've been so blessed by all three of our kids. I was able to stay home. I got to read to my kids. I just have smart kids, easy kids. I think we've had it pretty easy.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate.
Andrew was the baby of the four of us. I have three sisters, or two sisters. I'm the third, and then he was the baby. So he was just your typical little boy, you know, energetic. We all loved him, doted on him. He was the baby of the family. He was just your typical teenager, you know, funny, into sports, you know, made good grades. There was never any indication of, you know, the red flags back in those days. But then as he got older, you know, into his 20s, I think he experimented, but we never really thought there was a problem.
And then even the first time he went to rehab for 8 days, I thought he was healed. And then he went for 30 and I thought he was healed. And then at 89, I thought he was healed. It's such a process and such a mystery. So It's not that I couldn't believe that he had the problem, it's that I just didn't have any education.
Honestly, with the two of them, we always thought it was Anna that had. We never really thought Andrew had a serious problem. He hid it well. He hid it very well. Anna, on the other hand, was the one that would get a DUI. I mean, she was the one that got caught.
He lost his car, he lost his education, he lost his laptop, he lost his home. He was in a hotel, he had bed bugs, his clothes had to be thrown out. So he lost truly everything. And as a parent who just wants to provide, to watch everything that seemed to be your child go away. He lost his passion for sports. He lost his desire to read, his desire to learn. He lost all the things that used to give him pleasure. When he was arrested, it was a weekend, and President's Weekend, so the banks were closed on Monday, and we couldn't get him out of jail. And Clay actually went to the jail and just sat in the waiting room just to be near where he was, like you would do with your kid in the hospital, because there's nothing you can do, but there's nowhere else for you to be. So he sat there and I sat by the phone and would accept phone calls from Alex, and he was so scared. The toughest thing about addiction for me is the upside down nature of it, where you have to do things that are counterintuitive. As a mom, I protect my kid. When you're dealing with addiction, the things I was doing to protect him, like making sure he had enough money and clothing and shelter and food, actually allowed him to continue to use. And I had to stop doing those things until he could get into recovery. Until I stopped doing those things, he didn't understand that he couldn't keep living that way. It seems like you're making it just fine. The hardest thing was getting a phone call, Mom, I'm homeless, and everything I own is in this garbage bag. Will you come get me? And I had to say no. But I think it's the best thing. And that's so upside down, because that seems like it's not love, but I think it was the greatest display of love that I could have done, because now we have him back.
And we just feel like that we never were given solid answers. You know, it's don't enable, or, you know, they have to hit a bottom, and, you know, that's what's hard. And I mean, my mom and I were just talking about this the other day, you know, how we all still, you know, think, what if we had done this, or, you know, what more could we have done? And I don't know that that's ever going to go away.
Ultimately, and you're not going to hear this a whole lot, but the legal system saved me. And I have been to prison, and I've been every bad place a man can go. And my last run, I was locked up and I was looking at a lot of time, and I accepted that. At the same time, I knew it was over for the first time, kind of a moment of clarity. And through the process of the legal system, at this point in my life, I had no family there, and I had a public defender. And the public defender was a really strong advocate for me, for whatever reason. And I had a pre-sentence investigation, and I was just openly and honest. I'd never been honest before, and the clinician at the time actually prayed with me and appreciated my honesty. Probably doesn't hear it a whole lot. And I go into the court, and my PSI was very unusual to this judge and the prosecution, and it outlined my honesty and how this guy needs help. This guy does not need to be in prison. And so I was given the opportunity to go to the healing place. And you know, there's something working there. There's something working. I was expecting to go to prison for 5 to 10 years, and next thing you know, I'm given an opportunity at recovery.
That's awesome.
Yeah, legal system bailed me out. No pun intended.
I got on my knees and I threw up the first like sincere, authentic prayer of my whole life. It wasn't a foxhole prayer like, God, don't let this cop pull me over, don't let him find my stuff. It was God, I can't do this anymore, and I need you. And at some point thereafter, it wasn't like a white light moment. I didn't hear a booming voice, but it started to get easier just to see that I didn't have to do it. You know, since I couldn't do it, I didn't have to do it, and I kind of let him take over, and it's been going well since then.
I just decided one day that, you know, I don't want to live this way no more. It was a struggle in the beginning, you know, when I decided to make that positive change. It was a struggle because, you know, it kept pulling me back. It kept pulling me back. So it wasn't easy, and it was a process for me. You know, I had to start asking for help, you know, and I had to start actually applying the tools that were taught to me. And so that's what I did. You know, I realized that my life is very valuable, not just to myself, but to somebody else.
I wanted to stop. I knew I had to stop, but I couldn't stop. And I knew the only way I was going to stop was an intervention of some sort. And mine came in the form of the law. And when I went to jail, I finally took a deep breath because I knew it was over for me. I knew I could finally get help.
I'd battled addiction since I was 20 years old, and by the time I was 30 years old, I just came to that split in the road where it's either die or get on to living. And looking back, thank God I chose the right path. I'm engaged. I have my first child due in June, Christopher. I've already purchased nearly 2,000 diapers. That's what I've been investing money in. Not in the stock market, but in diapers. I'm just so excited to have an opportunity to have him in my life after everything I've been through. Truly blessed. That you can't force anyone to get help, you can't force anyone into treatment, but you can give your loved one good advice, and that's what I'd encourage the loved ones to do.
The people that are going through these struggles, they want a way out, but they don't know how. They don't know how to receive the help that is offered to them.
Have compassion. Try not to get so frustrated, and know that there is a solution to the problem.
There is hope, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. First, you have to stop using. It's hard, but it is so rewarding. I smile now, you know. The recovery process for me is like a second chance of life. And it's about hope. And if that's what I can get out, it's about hope. And it's about knowing that no matter what I've done, I can move on from it.
Need help for yourself or a loved one? Call 1-800-662-HELP or visit findtreatment.samhsa.org. A free downloadable video discussion guide and opiate addiction toolkit are available at safekentucky.org.